So let's look at some more problems involving critical numbers and extrema. So our first one we're going to look at is I want you to find the critical numbers of the function f of x, which will be x minus 4 square roots of x. So f prime of x will be, well, rewrite your function. This is x minus 4x to the 1/2. And then take the derivative, so you'll get 1 minus 2x to the negative 1/2. So this is 1 minus 2 over the square root of x. And if we get a common denominator here, it would be square root of x. So now we're going to combine. Here's my derivative. Square root of x minus 2 over square root of x. So when is this derivative undefined? Well, what's the one number I can't plug in for x that I could have plugged into my original function? That's x equals 0. When x equals 0. So that's going to be my first critical number. Now, you can't plug in negative numbers for x, but if you go back to your original function, you also couldn't have plugged in negative numbers there. So those don't count as critical numbers. And now, I'm going to set this equal to 0 and solve. Well, if it's 0, then the numerator has to be 0. Which means that if I square both sides, x would have to be 4. So my other critical number, f prime of x, equals 0 when x equals 4. So I'm getting two critical numbers here, 0 and 4. So let's look at another example. Determine the absolute extrema for the following function and interval g of t equals 2t cubed plus 3t squared minus 12t plus 4 on the interval 0 to 2. So I gotta find my critical numbers, take the derivative, g prime of t, 6t squared plus 6t minus 12. This is always defined because it's a polynomial. So now I want to set this equal to 0 and solve. I can factor out a 6 out of all my terms, which will make it easier for me to factor. Let's see. Oh, here, we don't need these. This will factor into t, 2 and 1, and a plus and a minus. So I'm getting two solutions. I'm getting, from this one, I'm getting t equals negative 2. And then from this one, I'm getting t equals 1. But if I look at my, remember we got to refer back to our interval. Our interval is from 0 to 2, and negative 2 is outside of that interval. So we got to get rid of it because this is outside of our interval. So my only critical number here is 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my function, which was g of t is 2t cubed plus 3t squared minus 12t plus 4. I'm going to plug in my two endpoints, 0, and my critical number, which is 1. So plug in 0 and 2 and 1 into this function. So if I plug in 0, you're going to get 4. If you plug in 1, you'll get 2 plus 3 minus 12 plus 4. You'll get negative 3. And if you plug in 2, you'll get 16 plus 12 minus 24 plus 4, you'll get 8. So now you got to compare these three values. What's your largest and what's your smallest? My largest is 8, so I'm going to say that the max is 8 and the minimum is -3. So let's look at one more of these. Let's determine the extrema of the function f of x, which will be 1 plus 80 x cubed plus 5x to the 4th minus 2x to the 5th on the interval 0 to 7. So you might want to take a minute, pause the video, and try it yourself. So the first thing we're going to do is take our derivative. We get 240 x squared plus 20x cubed minus 10x to the 4th. This is a polynomial, so it's always defined. So I just need to set this equal to 0 and solve. So I would like for my terms to be descending, so I'm going to rewrite them so the powers go down. And I'm going to factor out a -10, and I can factor out an x squared. So I get x squared minus 2x minus 24. And this will factor into a 4 and a 6. And the negative will be on the 6, the positive will be on 4. So I get two solutions. I get x equals -4 and x equals 6. But and I also get one from up here. Let's not forget that one. I get x equals 0. But x equals -4. This is outside of my interval again. So we've got to toss it out. Our interval here is 0 to 7. So I just need to plug in my endpoint, f of 0. I need to plug in my critical number 6. And I need to plug in 7 into my function. And you will probably have to use a calculator for this. These numbers get a little large. 1, 8,209, 5,832. And so I'm going to say that the absolute max is the largest of these three values is 8,209, and it occurs at x equals 6. And then the absolute minimum, it's 1, and it occurs at x equals 0. So there's my absolute max and minimum values there.